Well, let me ask you this, because I think there's a lot of people out there that might be in that still recreational phase, or they're on the verge of just getting into racing, but they're not really quite sure what it might entail in terms of training.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. Knowing what you know now, in terms of the different types of sessions,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think guys or gals who want to get into racing, what do you think the sessions that they need to potentially get really used to?
Welcome back to Bespoke Endurance. Today is episode 18 of Recreational Rider to Racer podcast series, where Josh and I are transforming into racers, leveling up on the bike and in life in the midst of busy lives, work, and young families. If that is something that interests you, hit that subscribe button and follow us along on our journey. You will not be disappointed.
No, you will not.
Okay, it has been a while since we've been together and filmed. We've had traveling, we've had sickness, so a lot has happened. So I kind of want to start off today's show and just doing a very, very quick kind of recap of, because we've both done some racing.
Yep.
We haven't really got to talk about them. I don't want to do like a full breakdown of everything, but just a recap of kind of where we're at. So where do you want to start with any of this?
Let's start about the A race that I didn't do, that you did.
Yes.
And
the Hyde Park
I
Blast.
was sitting in bed throwing up.
Yeah.
While you were having a grand old time, and I was silently screaming.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So you the Wednesday before the race weren't feeling too good. We were gonna do some podcast filming, and you were like had to cancel that.
Yep.
And then Thursday you were like, I'm great. So
let me give you a quick breakdown of what happened, because I think it's one of those things that my wife gave me a lot of grief over, because I woke up Wednesday not feeling 100%, and then I was feeling fine enough to go out and do heat training. Wednesday, yep. So got outside, did intervals out in the heat, and it was hot
like 95 temps. Yeah,
it was
95 Fahrenheit for any of the European listeners. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but
it was hot. So, and then felt really terrible Wednesday night. Got up Thursday.
Canceled on this.
Canceled the podcast because I was in bed, and I was like, everything was just like stomach, really bad fever, all the things. Woke up Thursday feeling like, hey, I actually feel pretty good. Feel okay, you know. Knew I wasn't like probably 100%. We were supposed to do heat training again because our race Saturday it's like middle of the day. So I was like, our coach was like, hey, get as much heat training as you can. However, my coach didn't know that I was sick. So we still went and did heat training for
like a 2-hour zone 2 ride.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like we're killing intervals.
No,
like
just
we're kind of
easy. Yeah.
We're kind of tapering for the race at that point.
Yep. But, ended up feeling even worse after the ride. I came home, threw up a couple times, and then just was like, I think I fell asleep both nights, probably like 8 p.m. So to my wife's chagrin, that she was handling kids, and of course our kids just are losing their minds. You know, both nights where Harmony was up like almost till 10:30 each night, just wouldn't go to sleep. You know. And so I was like, and I'm like dead downstairs. So anyways, I just had this really bad stomach bug. Woke up Friday, like obviously didn't work. And I was like, I laid in bed the whole day and just felt awful. Woke up Saturday and was still like, nah, my stomach is not there. And then I was just like, you know what? There is no point in me going out and racing and just DNFing it. And I was like, there's no point. I'm like, I'm not going to do this.
This was the A race.
Yeah, this was the A race. And I was so excited for it because our Hyde Park Blast is a really popular event here locally. Yeah. And a lot of people show up to it. And they do this big 5K in the morning. It's like this whole thing. So I was super pumped about it, but just honestly really bummed that I just couldn't race it because I just was like, you know what? If I go out and race this, come back sick again, I was like, I think my wife will kill me. So,
but now, hang on. I don't want to end on that note, only because you've managed to pivot.
Yeah.
So this is not
Yeah.
oh man, I've been training since January for this one race, and now I'm done, and it's over, and that's it. So you've managed to kind of pick up a second race coming up.
Yep. I'm going to do the Indy Crit. So not this weekend, but the following weekend. So really just 2 weeks after this Hyde Park Blast, I'm going to race a crit. Basically, same situation as what the Hyde Park Blast would be. And honestly, hopefully about the same amount of guys. So somewhere in that like 20, maybe 30 guys lining up. And so I'm excited about it, but and it's close enough to where I'm not having to, travel extensively or anything like that. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
Okay.
But let me hear how your Hyde Park Blast went, because you did good. You did really good. You were in the mix, the final mix of the last 2 laps.
It was all right. No. Okay. So night and day, I had very low expectations.
Yeah.
It was way better than last year. My weaknesses showed up, and my weakness is bike handling. We even went to the night race, the pro race that night, and I was with some friends. They're like, you couldn't even hang with these guys on one lap. And I'm like, watch them go through these 2 corners. And they were like, nope. Like, so here, the race for me, it went well in that I didn't ever get pulled out, did better than last year. Where my weaknesses showed is the really hard cornering. And so the parts on the course where everybody else is kind of recovering, I'm surging to get back on.
Yep.
And then I catch up, get where they've kind of been recovering for 40 seconds, I get a 10-second recovery. And they come out of a 180-degree corner, and everybody just sprints.
It's a well-known, like that. This particular race, it's well-known that out of that corner, you're sprinting.
So I would bury myself to get on the wheel, get through that corner, and then barely have enough to surge with them. And then they let off, and there's a left-hander straight up a hill.
Yep.
And so same thing, like I'd catch up when they'd let off, but then they'd hit that corner. And so it's just the cornering is what really, like I was in the mix for a couple laps, like up at the front, but that's what showed. And by the time I got to the last 2 laps, like 1, I was out of gas.
Yeah.
And 2, the rear camera that was mounted nearly fell off. And I was like, I'm not about to lose a $400 camera for a race that I'm not going to place well in. So it was okay. Like, it was a fun experience. My family came, and it was fun.
But also worth noting that this is midsummer, and really like worst time of the day to actually race, because it was a 2 o'clock race, and it was hot.
It was like Satan's butthole hot.
Yeah. Dude, but that's hot. The thing is, like, it's one of those, when I was planning out my A race, I knew this race would be warm. I just didn't think about the heat training that would go into this, in terms of most of our riding is done in the morning where it's not as hot. And so just given time with kids, extra family, it's like, it just makes sense to try and not do most of my training in the evenings or in the afternoons. It's like, it's just work and all this stuff. So it's like, it really does play a huge factor in terms of like guys that heat train and that were ready for that. Like even you did a great job with it, but other dudes who are out there that towed up on the line, they're thinking, oh, that'll be warm, but I'll be fine. It's like, if they didn't heat train, there's no shot you would have to be in that mix by any stretch, because it's too hot. You're just bodies, especially with the humidity where you can't sweat. It's like, it's, that sweat is being trapped, I should say. So it's like,
for sure. So let's see what else we have.
You did Coors. So
I did Coors 3, kind of a very last minute Father's Day gift to me was go ride your bike somewhere. So I did Coors. Coors 3 went not as good as Coors 2. Okay. I think I went in a little too confident because of how good I feel like I did at Coors 2, where I got second. And so I'm thinking, I got this. And when we raced Coors 2, it was very wet and rainy. So I think a lot of people bailed. This field was much stronger.
Sure.
Like our Coors was kind of cruising until the first climb. This was attack and counterattack the whole race. Okay. And so trying to make sure I stuck with the right moves and played smart, and then at the end just didn't have enough in the tank. Kind of burned a couple of matches in some bad places. But still happy with the outcome. Yeah. It was a fun race.
Did you still finish top 10?
I think so.
Yeah. Which is, how many guys showed up in the field roughly?
Probably 30. maybe
Yeah.
30 plus.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gary can comment on here and tell us how many were in our field.
Yeah. I know. It's just I wish I could have done that with you, but yeah, just the amount of racing, it's tough to,
You did a
tough
crit
to
though,
commit.
and then
Yeah, it got rained out. I want to do it next year, but this goes into the whole, like, it was not initially on the race calendar. So there's an there's a local race that happens. It's like I think there's 4 or 5. I think it's 5. There's 5 different Wednesday night rides, or crits, I should say, that happen, and they're really, really fun. It's like a really fun, just kind of a little bit of a climbing crit, essentially, because there's a little bit kind of a hill. So it was really fun. The only problem was it just got rained out, so that was kind of the bummer. Where there's enough guys that showed up, but we were just trying to beat the thunderstorm that came through.
I was gonna say, rained out as in you didn't start, or rained out as canceled during?
We canceled during. So the race director did the right call, where he said, "Hey, if there's lightning, we're going to cancel this. Rain, we'll keep it going, but lightning, we're shutting this thing down."
How long was the crit scheduled for?
30 minutes.
And how long did you get in?
16.
So
half. Yeah. It was just a bummer because we were in the mix of, there was kind of a front pack that formed, and then it was at that point it was like, okay, hey, the race director was out there and like, look, we're done.
Yeah.
So
okay.
And it made the right call. After that, like 5 minutes later, it was downpouring, and it was like, this is absolutely the right call. So
okay, so we've crammed a lot in since Cherahalla, in the Cherahalla chat. We've surprisingly crammed a lot of stuff in.
We really have. But it's one of those things that's interesting to think about, the heat training element for races in the summer, because I'm going to be thinking about that for next year a lot more than I thought about that planning out for this year. So in terms of which races I really want to do, in terms of like potential A races versus, this would be fun, but I think that's going to be an interesting factor going into next year. Thinking about the dynamic of like heat training requires at least a decent amount of time spent where you're outside
wearing a paint suit on your trainer in the basement.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've seen guys do that.
That's our coach. He's been having me do that for heat training. When,
are you serious?
Yeah, where I'm in Jersey and
I mean, like, have you seen the guys they wear like a paint out, like you're painting your house.
Yeah.
Like those painter suits. So
wait, why?
It's like to heat train, to trap sweat. Like I've seen people on
you can just wear your jersey and get the same effect.
I've seen these. No, it's a full long sleeve pants, a shirt, and a hood.
Oh.
Like those, like almost they look like little hazmat suits for painting.
Okay.
I've seen these like Instagram influencers.
If you're send us some links or pictures in the comments. I want to see these. Yeah. So.
Now, it could just be people posing for Instagram, but I'm pretty sure I've seen some people doing this.
Okay, interesting. I don't know that I've seen that.
Let's switch gears to actual stuff we want to talk about real quick.
Okay, so let's transition to talking about one thing that I really want to get into is how racing has changed our training. I think this is really interesting because now we're halfway through the year. We started officially training from recreational riders to racers in January. Now it's officially July, but first part of July, so we're halfway through the year. And I am curious to get into the fact of the amount of training that we've done all the way up to this year has drastically been different than I would have imagined. I'm not sure about you, but I want to start off asking, in terms of just from everything that we've done from January up till this point, how has racing changed your training this year?
It's definitely given it purpose, vision, focus.
Yep.
I've noticed this year, because I've done structured training, but I would say that this has been more pointed, more block training. So what I mean by that is like very specific blocks of time dedicated to different types of intervals. So, the winter was very different than the spring as we got closer to Cherahalla, closer to these crits that we've started doing.
Yep.
So definitely appreciate the kind of 4 to 6 week block style training. Like even now with Cherahela over, Derek's been like, hey, you want to do chorus 4? That's awesome. You're fit, but we're gonna kind of switch directions a little bit now. Mm-hmm. And so I've really appreciated that. That's something that makes it palpable.
Yeah.
I think, instead of just starting in January and thinking Cherahela's in June, I just got to get there. It kind of breaks it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because I think there's a lot of people out there that might be in that still recreational phase, or they're on the verge of just getting into racing, but they're not really quite sure what it might entail in terms of training. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Knowing what you know now, in terms of the different types of sessions, mm-hmm. what do you think guys or gals who want to get into racing, what do you think the sessions that they need to potentially get really used to in terms of their training?
Okay. So before I answer specific sessions, I think that there's another question that it entails is to kind of going from recreational rider to racer, there has to be a level of consistency.
Yes.
So I would say you have to get ready for, the biggest difference I made this year was like the 80-20 periodization mm-hmm. kind of training. So 20% of your workouts are full gas. So for us, that translated into, or 20% of your time.
Yeah.
So for us, that translated into 2 days a week in the spring of crazy high intensity. Now, as our coach built up our TSS, that's training stress score on our bodies in the winter, he had us doing kind of 3 days of intervals. Because if you remember back when we first started this, we were always complaining about, at least I was. I was complaining about doing 3 days of intervals.
I never complained.
And then, but also the 80% is really like a true zone 2.
Yeah.
Like
low intensity.
Low intensity. And, that has come with, we've had to kind of say no to some things. Like when we go on group rides and you and I like get dropped or are purposely just kind of hanging back. And one guy's like, you guys are riding so slow. And we're like, sorry. Like, we don't really care. We're not doing intervals today.
Yep.
As far as specific intervals, I really like the like VO2 6-minute hill climbing mm-hmm. all out efforts, mostly because it's kind of reminiscent to like similar stuff when I was a runner, like in high school, a mid-distance runner, and kind of doing this real high intensity interval and then a lower recovery and then try to go and do it again.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say for someone getting into training, structured training, consistency, 2 days a week, and then really like still getting on the bike, but not going crazy hard.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of other things that are important if you're thinking about this, or just in terms of things that I didn't really do beforehand, even in other blocks of like triathlon training. For example, like you're doing a lot of supra thresholds, which is essentially you're going above your threshold where you're like, it's hard, but it's certainly not your max. Okay. And it really teaches you to really hold really tough pacing. And I think that's really like, it's typically, an example of these would be like, you're going like 5-minute interval blocks and you're going like maybe 120% of your FTP. And so it's like, you're going at like, okay, I need to hold this for 5 minutes. Yeah, this is going to really hurt. But it teaches you that during racing, this is some of those things that are going to be really difficult to hold when you're feeling like, ooh, man, I don't want to keep going. This is tough. It teaches you that mental aspect of, hey, you know what? Your training is going to be hard, but this is what racing is. You're going to have these moments in it. There's another session that's been one of the staples in terms of sweet spots too, which I really like, but it's, that power zone just kind of below your threshold, but then you're in that range of like 88 to 94% of your FTP, but it's like, it's really just, you're trying to build that muscular endurance and efficiency, and it's kind of like one of your bread and butter building of your fitness, because it's just, you're constantly going a little bit below and then a little bit above, and so you're just kind of like, like you're kind of doing this like where you're getting close but you're not quite at threshold. And I think that's a really interesting way to continue to try and increase your threshold, your total FTP. So
what because you mentioned triathlon,
Yep.
you know, you are not a wuss when it comes to triathlon. Like, I think
No.
anybody that's done an Ironman
Yeah.
has put in the work.
Yeah.
What for you and your experience would you say has been more challenging for training?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways because you're not spending as much time focused solely on your bike in terms of triathlon, you just have to focus also on your swim and your run. So therefore, the training on the bike tended to be a lot of, you're doing intervals, but you're doing...
When you say training on the bike, you're talking for the triathlon.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So in
Sorry.
triathlon, you're really not doing that much top end stuff in terms of like, you're mostly doing a lot of long intervals, or you're doing a lot of steady state, like you're doing zone 2 stuff. You're trying to continue to do these long, steady, just builds. And I think one of the biggest differences is that for me, I found myself really not increasing my bike power that much when I was doing triathlon stuff, because my bigger focus was trying to improve my running and my swim. And so I did a lot of probably too much easy riding with triathlon, to be honest, comparatively. Like, so triathlon training to this, I was not doing as nearly as much high intensity as I am on the bike now.
Okay.
And I would say that in terms of the other thing is just the volume too. So now I'm spending on average about 10-ish hours a week just focused on training on the bike. Whereas opposed to triathlon, where it's like, I might spend 4 to 5 hours on the bike, but when you think about that adding up over the course of 6 months, man, that's night and day difference in terms of how much time and energy you're putting into the bike fitness element.
That was something that I feel like early on when we were doing intervals outside.
Yeah.
I could sense you getting like discouraged.
Yeah.
And that was something I kept coming back to. I was like, man, look, the training you've done is just hold a pace for a really long time below threshold. Going into the red, pushing yourself, and then
very different than this year. Like learning how to do that
max, and then bringing it back down, then doing that again, without stopping.
Yep.
Like, that was, I think that was a learning curve for you, kind of early on.
Oh yeah, and I would say that that's one thing that's I was unexpected, or I didn't expect as much high intensity. And also one of the other things too that our coach is really big on too is training on tired legs.
Yeah,
and that was something
and racing on tired legs.
Exactly, especially if it's not your A race, right? Because it's like, the whole thing was, I remember I had a couple of times with our coach, and you were in the text thread as well, where we had a couple of funny moments where I would say, like, I would typically have these taper windows of like 2 weeks for triathlon stuff, and I would taper pretty hard, and it didn't feel bad, but like when our coach was like, yeah, you're not going to do that for any of these smaller races that we did. It was just, hey, you're still doing these 8-minute, you're doing 6 by 8 minutes on going in, you're doing that on a Tuesday. And then, hey, Thursday, you're going to do another VO2 Max. And then Saturday you're racing, and you're just like, wait, no, I want to be fresh for this race. And he would say, is it your A race? And I'd be like, well, no. And it's like, then no, it doesn't matter. Your ultimate goal is to get to this A race, not this other B race. But it teaches you that, like, A, other guys are training on tired legs, and B, it also teaches you that during a race, you're not going to feel amazing, and you're going to have to overcome there's some point in that race where you're thinking, dude, my legs are fatiguing, or I'm getting really tired. Great. You've put a crazy amount of work into knowing what that feels like and being able to still continue.
Well, something we haven't really tapped into with this sport, we did once, and it was when we went to Georgia, was multiple races over the course of a day or 2 days. So like, there was a guy I was talking to, he works at a local bike shop around here, and he did 2 races for the Hyde Park Blast. He did his category, and then he did the 123 Pro. And I was like, I know a lot of people that do that. That do a race in the morning and then come back and do one later that day or the next day. And I think that's part of it too with this sport. And when you look at, like, I know we're never going to be pro, but like when you look at the Grand Tour guys, they are racing every day for 3 weeks, and they only get 2 days off, 2 rest days built into the a 21-day Grand Tour.
It's crazy.
So there is an element of you're training your body how to respond when it's fatigued and under stress.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think the other thing too that's interesting, like if you're thinking about racing, or if you're considering wanting to get into even just, for example, like triathlon, if you're thinking about wanting to get into something where you're thinking about, hey, this has to be structured training, and otherwise I can't just show up to things and expect to perform really well. But I think one of the things that's also really, and this will be important for us, is it's not so much about natural talent as so much as it is about grittiness.
Yeah.
Because I've been reading this book, Angela Duckworth, this very popular book called Grit. It's a fascinating book, and she goes through all these different case studies of different industries, different sports. She talks about the fact that like it's not so much of people overemphasize talent, and they don't emphasize enough of people's grittiness, or in essence, like you showing up day after day after day, trying again after again.
Yeah.
That element that people, that never giving up attitude. And if you want to get into racing, you might have some natural talent. And there are people that, like, if you're training equally the same, the person with natural talent is of course going to be better. Mm-hmm. However, there is some of it that people think when they look at guys and gals that like, oh man, it's a Cat 1 rider. Dude, that's amazing, man. Oh, they're so talented. It's like, yes, they have probably some natural talent. I would imagine that most of what got them there is grittiness.
Yeah.
Is that showing up, that discipline year after year of getting to that point where they're just like, you become good because they just build these like super disciplined habits of continuing to like push themselves to be like, hey, I need to get better than I was last year, or I need to do better than what I'm currently doing, you know? And so I think that's a huge part of it that
Totally.
people don't, so I think the other thing is like, when I look back previous to this year, when I would watch guys go out and do the alt park, like, or the Hyde Park Blast, like race and stuff, I would always think like, man, that's crazy. Those guys are crazy. Like, that's really cool, but those guys are just super talented. But what I didn't realize was like, not only can you do that and other people can do it just like us, it's putting in the time and putting in the effort to be like, you know what? I can do this too, but man, you know what? I got to work my butt off to get there.
Two things on that. One, think about it though. To get to Cat 1 and starting at Cat 5, that means you had to have done a lot of racing to get to that. So that kind of speaks to that grit you're talking about. The other thing I thought of, our coach, when I was in high school, used to say, he had the saying, and he probably stole it from someone, but it was, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yeah.
And it's like...
He definitely didn't come up with that saying.
No, he did not. No, that's... you know.
It's a good saying,
but the idea is
like
what you said, it's, you know, talent, there's a lot of times when hard work beats talent.
100%.
You know, what's the other expression? Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard.
Yes.
So
yes,
like even that race, my Hyde Park Blast, I walked away from that and I thought, I know that there were guys in that race that I am more fit than.
Yeah.
But they are better at bike handling because they've put in the time to develop that. And that's been something I've been trying to work at, and I'm working at it. I'm not just, you know, you don't just get on the bike and masterfully have bike handling skills.
I think one of the other things too that separates good racers from just people who race is, and this is what will separate us in terms of like potential for others that are considering it, that are new, is the idea of like, you have to be obsessed with getting better. You have to be really good about, you know what, like,
can we change the word? I don't know. I get where you're going, but like, I think like,
you have to really, really care.
I think laser
about
focus or hyper focus. I just don't like the word obsessed.
That's fine.
It's just my nitpickiness with it.
That's fine.
I'm like, that's all you think about all the time. And it's like,
laser focus is another. You
have to zone in and be focused on it.
Right.
Like, because I just think, you know, to be obsessed about something that I think would disqualify us as going from recreational rider to racer, because it's like we have other commitments. We have families, we have
Well,
jobs.
true.
And it's like,
Yeah.
to be obsessed, you're foregoing those things.
I'd
So
be curious what our wives think of whether we're obsessed or not.
Yeah. So I would use the word like laser focused, or you really zone in to what you're doing.
Yeah.
But with that, you can, when you're not on the bike and not training, not planning your races, you can zone out and do other laser focused things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I did want to ask you too, what do you think is, now that we've had at least half a year of training in that element of racing, is any of it sustainable or not sustainable for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest, I mean, I've said this a lot, this has been kind of a recurring theme. The biggest change for me this year has been adapting to getting up early.
Yeah.
So at first I thought that wasn't sustainable, but because I've been able to do it now, like I'm a teacher, I'm on summer break. I'm now waking up earlier than when I actually am for my job. So like I'm, getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock and going out and riding so I can be home by 8 or 9 on a late day. So I think that's sustainable, getting up early as hard as it is. And then the structured training, as long as when you have a rest day, take an appropriate rest, and that's different for everybody. Some people that's off the bike, some people that's just light spinning, but doing a sustainable like workouts as far as not just always going hard, and then just killing yourself to where it's like you're not even getting effective intervals.
Exactly.
But allowing your body to properly recover. Maybe
absorb the training.
Maybe rest is the right word. Proper recovery.
Yeah,
as I think it makes it sustainable. What about you?
I think that's true. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only thing I would add in that is if this was all we did from January to December, it's not sustainable.
No.
With outside of race season, and even in race season too, has to be a couple of times where you go out and you're like, you just have fun.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, we're human. Yep. We want to sometimes just like, dude, I just wanted to go a little bit harder today on this group ride. I did it a couple times. Our coach was like, hey, this didn't really benefit you, but I get it, type of thing. And it wasn't like this, oh, dude, you can never do this type of thing. I think you have to have a little bit of fun with it too, where it can't be all like, you can't be so focused that you're like, man, I'm out of race season, but I need to really do it. It's like, you can chill out a little bit and have fun, do some KOM hunting.
Yep.
Go out on that fun group ride, go hard or whatever, but you need to kind of balance that with
if you're not having fun, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're going to burn out.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Okay. So what we want to know from you guys is if you could keep one workout all year long, what would it be?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
And what surprised you most when you first started racing for those that got into racing? We'd love to hear that. Let us know in the comments below.
All right, let's take a second here before we go any further. We want to give a huge shout out to a couple people who support our channel. So first, we want to give a big shout out to Road ID for not only supporting our podcast, but letting us film right here at their headquarters. If you are a cyclist, runner, or just someone who wants peace of mind while out on the road, Road ID has you covered. Their medical IDs provide crucial info in case of an emergency, and they look great too. Do yourself a favor, check out roadid.com and grab one today. Big thanks to the team at Road ID for their support. We also want to mention that Kentucky Open Road Racing Series is partnering with us to bring you an exclusive deal. If you're looking to race in the Kentucky Open Road Racing Series this season, use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout for 15% off at registration.
Last race coming up.
The last one is coming up.
Limited opportunity.
August 2nd.
Yep.
August 2nd, the last race. If you live in Kentucky, it's the Kentucky State Championships.
Ooh.
So come on down. I know I'm 100% going.
Yep.
Are you figured out yet if you're doing that or the Ohio State Champs? Or?
Well, it's not a question of that anymore. It's more of if I do Indy Crit versus Coors. I think that'll be the interesting dynamic at home to see what's going to be feasible versus unfeasible. So
plus for every race entry or volunteer spot enters you in a drawing to win a Cannondale Super 6 Evo 4. Whether you're a seasoned racer or just getting started, Coors has something for every level cyclist. Head over to KentuckyORRS.com and use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout. That's BESPOKE15. I actually have a friend who's I've convinced him he's going to go down and do the Cat 5 for Coors.
Oh, let's go.
And I was like, that's awesome.
Good.
So he's like, I'm in. My wife's gonna go down. I was like, dude, that's so cool. So,
I love that. Good.
So I love it.
Yeah, it's you will have a fantastic time if you race that. Great event.
Okay, let's since we've not been here in a while, a lot has been happening in cycling.
Yeah, some really exciting stuff.
In the world of cycling, so a lot of things being released.
Yes,
a lot of tech, a lot of stuff on the internet. So let's get into some stuff. All right. So first thing up is SRAM has updated their Force and their Rival group sets.
Yes.
Kind of following a lot of the technology that they introduced with their new SRAM Red last year. So it's both sets are lighter. The SRAM Force now has button shifters in the hoods, like Shimano, and both or all three of their electronic group sets now are apparently like the greatest braking performance, like one finger lever braking. And I've talked to people that have it, and they're like, it's literally like your index finger just stops the bike.
That's crazy.
So it's
I
like
know.
some crazy piston work going on. So here's what I want to do though.
Yeah.
So you are
But you're a Shimano guy.
Yeah. So you are riding SRAM.
So do you hate that update? Does that make your blood boil when you hear SRAM? You're throwing things against the wall.
No, I've always been hesitant with SRAM because the front derailleur has been notorious for throwing chains. And so supposedly that has finally in this third generation of ETAP now been like dialed in.
Okay.
So here's what I kind of want to throw to you. You are a SRAM, like you're on a SRAM. We have the same bike.
Yep. I've just got SRAM.
You've got SRAM. I've got Shimano.
Yep.
I want to throw. What would it take to get either of us to switch? Like, would you say you're diehard SRAM guy, or are you like, I would ride Shimano?
I would ride Shimano. I rocked 105s forever on my previous one.
Not electronic shifting.
I haven't rocked the electronic shifting of Shimano. So honestly, I don't know. The one big appeal for me with SRAM is the interchangeability.
Yeah,
that has a huge appeal for me long term. Because I like that element of being able to have that, whereas Shimano, you just can't.
Yeah.
So
not yet anyway. It's not backward compatible.
True. Yeah. So not yet anyway. But in terms of like, if I had a bike, and if I bought a brand new bike and it came with like Dura-Ace, and I'm like, I wouldn't change it over to SRAM.
Okay.
I would leave it. I would feel like it would just be fine. But in terms of just the bike, where if I am just upgrading my frame, currently based on what I have, I'm just going to upgrade to SRAM Red, like if I can, and then just keep, with the SRAM components and in that capacity. But yeah, not a diehard SRAM guy. I understand there's a lot of people who are, that hate SRAM or that are diehard SRAM people that hate Shimano. So
yeah.
What are you?
So I think if I were buying a complete bike, I still think I'd lean towards Shimano because it's like, well, if I'm buying a complete bike, I'm not building it. Some mechanic is. Mm-hmm. So all that, it's more mechanic friendly. I'm like, well, I don't care. Someone else is building it.
Okay.
I like the shifting of Shimano. I like now that they've got the buttons, like I've got the buttons so I can control my Wahoo.
Yeah.
If I were building up a bike, I think I would maybe go SRAM because I like how because it's all backward compatible. I like the idea of you can upgrade it slowly.
Yes.
And it's super common. Like there was a time in cycling where like you did not mix and match Shimano stuff. Like if you had like a Dura-Ace crank but like Ultegra shifters, people would like hate you. These elitist people.
Right.
It's so normal in SRAM to just kind of Frankenstein a bike together.
Yeah.
And so I do like the idea of like if building it up, you can kind of buy parts over time. You can wait on better deals. So, I mean, if their front derailleur is as good as they say, I'm not against it.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I'm excited it would be really fun to test the new SRAM components.
Let's just do this. We should just, on a weekend like Zone 2, let's just switch bikes.
Swap
because
bikes.
we have the same pedals and stuff.
It's true.
Pretty much the same size.
I know. I'd be curious to ride. Your seat is probably a lot more comfortable than mine. So.
I don't know why we haven't thought of this.
It's a good thought. Let's do it.
Why have we not thought of this?
I like it.
Okay, also. This
new wheels.
Yeah, so Roval have released 2 wheel sets.
Mm-hmm.
They're upgraded CLX3s, the Roval Rapide CLX3, and the Rapide Sprints have been released.
I liked how they called it the sprints the fastest to the finish line. I was like,
yeah. Okay, I do have some issues with some of this. So, I've got Roval. I love my wheels. They're phenomenal.
You've got the CLX twos.
Yeah. The Rapide Sprints, there was I read it on their website that at the finish line with 250 meters to go, they are 18 centimeters faster. That's what they literally marketed. That means that you're going to win
18 centimeters. Let's do it. There it is. Hey, the photo finish.
Oh, gosh,
it's not going to matter about your power or anything else.
Nope.
The wheels are going to get you
how well you draft in the race.
Yeah.
The other thing.
Wheels will get you.
So I thought that was funny. What kind of really frustrated me is when these wheels came out. These were the first gen were released with the SL7, and the big claim to fame was the mullet build. Mm-hmm. So the front wheel is 51 millimeters deep, and the back is 60. And the idea was that gives you better handling in the crosswind, the way they kind of did their internal rim width, but then you still get that aero benefit of the back. And now the new wheel
reverse
is completely opposite. So it's like a 51 front and like a 48 rear.
Yeah.
And they say they do that to shave off weight, because these wheels are like 200 plus grams lighter than the outgoing generation. So,
but also, didn't they say that aerodynamics play a greater impact in terms of the front wheel versus your rear?
I mean, that's what they're telling us.
Yeah.
But like 5 years ago, they were telling us that this was more aerodynamic. So now I'm kind of like, it's funny because I've heard a lot of longtime people kind of hate on Specialized, and I'm like, I don't get it. Why do people like? And I'm starting to see like, oh yeah, like 5 years ago I was being sold on these wheels, and now they're saying, oh, it's actually the reverse mullet is better. And I'm like, so which is it?
They're just pulling the hood over you,
But now, kind of with that, when people first saw the SL8, they thought there's no way that thing is as fast when you look at it, and it's the same way. The front of it is way more like a beefy, and then like the seat stays and chain stays are like paper thin, and that bike's just as fast. So I don't know I'm not gonna switch my wheels. That's where I land on this.
That's where you land.
That's where I land.
Yep.
But I was a little frustrated by it.
I like the 18 centimeters. That's pretty good though. Like that's the new that's gonna get me.
That's gonna be it.
Yep. Okay, so Tour de France.
Yes.
Two things have happened.
Yes.
One is the Tour de France Unchained is being released literally right before the Tour de France, which is a mistake.
Yep. I hate this.
And
I'm pissed about this.
Yeah, and also it's the last season, which I think everybody knows, but let's get in it. Why are they releasing it so close to the Tour de France? Because when the Tour de France starts, I'm like, I'm not going to watch last year's Tour de France Unchanged.
Because some idiot at Netflix marketing was like, oh, this is a good idea. Okay, so it used to release in early June, and you could have time to
so great.
to watch it. And now they've got 3 seasons. That's still enough time to go binge watch the whole series.
Yeah.
It released July 2nd. And the tour started July 5th. Yeah. There are 8 episodes. Yeah. That's on average, basically 3 episodes per day, and then you watch 2 the last day.
Yeah.
I started watching it, and I'm like, I have to cram so much in. Because once the tour starts, I'm sorry, my shift focuses to...
I don't care about last year.
No, I'm going to watch... for me, it's like go on a bike ride.
Yeah.
And everybody in our house knows nobody gets the TV except Dad until 11:30. And then
your kids are screaming.
But
crying.
then but here, this is like my tour. Like my family knows July is like my Super Bowl for sports.
Yeah.
And the family just accepts this. So in my house, in the Tiki house, yes.
I love this. It's your Super Bowl.
Tour in the morning.
Okay.
And then 3:00. I probably won't. I'll watch it that night. I'll watch the Lance podcast series. I'll watch The Move. I love watching that. Mm-hmm. And then even Cade Media does a daily recap now. Oh, so I cram a lot into July.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the tour.
Yeah.
And if I can't catch the stage, or if it's kind of a boring sprint stage, or I've got life going on, I'll watch the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Before I watch The Move. I can't watch the move until I've at least seen.
Yeah, you
what
got to watch
happens.
at least the highlights first.
Because I don't like being told
this is what happened, and then
Yeah.
you're just like, oh. So yeah,
but
I
like
agree.
no, my family recognizes that July is like the
Yeah.
TV is mine.
I love that. I could just picture that at home. What I have pictured in my mind is like your 3 kids like just crying on the couch, and your wife's in the kitchen just like buried her hands, and you're just like just chilling watching the Tour de France.
What I like to do also, and anyone that lives in the area that's a friend of mine, this is an open invite, is like on a mountain stage.
I know.
We'll get up and do an early morning ride,
and
then come back to my house, and I'll make a big breakfast on the Blackstone, and then watch like the mountain stage. I know. Like Derek came over last year; it was so much fun.
I know. I need to take PTO and do this.
You should, definitely.
Yeah.
You know what? The VO2 stage.
Ooh.
I think it's stage 16 this year.
We should do that.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Okay.
So.
All right. Well, the other thing that's interesting about the Tour de France too is we got 5 American guys in there. I'm excited about that. Who are the guys?
We got Sepp Kuss. We've got
Matteo
Jorgensen. I'm super happy about this one. Quinn Simmons.
Yeah.
He's back. It's been like 2 years. I like watching him.
Yeah.
We got McNulty.
Mm-hmm. Brandon McNulty.
Yep. And is it Nielsen?
Nielsen Palace. Yep. I mean,
okay. Who are the ones that you like watching out of those? Because you don't like watching all of them.
I think if I had to say a favorite, it's Sepp.
Okay.
Because I think it's interesting in terms of the dynamics with Jumbo, where you've got Wout's obviously great, but it's like, I think he's that other guy on the team that I'm just fascinated by in terms of just his ability to potentially be a GC guy, but yet he's behind Jonas. It's like you can't, like, he's not going to be the number 1 guy during the Tour until he potentially goes to a different team. But yeah, I don't know what his contract is, but he's a fascinating
I don't know
rider.
if Sepp will be a GC. Like, yes, he won the Volta, and that was amazing, and I'm not knocking team or GC Kuss. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I still think at his core, he's just more of a designated climber.
You think so?
I think Matteo could be a GC guy one day.
Yeah, that's true. He did really good last year.
That all-rounder. Didn't he win Paris-Nice a couple years ago? He's starting to do the classics.
Yeah. He could be the dude.
So I do like watching both of them. I'm excited for Quinn Simmons on those like breakaway days where it's kind of like not a GC day because he's fun.
Yeah.
And then I'll be honest, like no disrespect to Nielsen or Brandon McNulty, but like I just enjoy the other 3 much more.
Yeah.
Like
that's fair.
I don't turn on and I'm like, there's McNulty. But like when I see Sepp like climbing a mountain, I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Like game on.
Yeah, I agree. But it is exciting. Also, none of these guys have, except for Brandon. Brandon's an American, but these other guys' names, like these guys are from the States and they feel like they have European names,
Sepp, Matteo, Quinn, and Nielsen. Not like
I don't know.
Where's like the Adams and John? And
that's right. But exciting. It'll be really fun to watch. I'm excited to see how this plays out.
For sure. So let's leave some comments. Which of the Americans are you most excited to watch in this year's tour? Which also, we didn't get to this, but that follows up news this past week. George Hincapie is starting an American team. A little controversy around it because the move is one of the sponsors.
Yep.
And so, like, there's all this. Does that violate Lance's ban? Which apparently it doesn't.
Yeah.
And Lance
if he's a sponsor,
he can sponsor. He just can't do anything with the team. Can't hang out with them. Can't go watch them.
That's wild.
But no, it's it's George, and then I think I saw.
I don't know anybody else besides Hincapie.
I think Bobby Julich is attached to it as well.
Oh, okay.
And then I think I heard Christian Vandevelde, but I have to confirm that one. But
I wouldn't be surprised.
I definitely heard George and Bobby Julich.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was too.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that, just to try to get American cycling.
Yeah. What I think I heard this, and I could have heard this incorrectly, but what was their potential for, like, taking a couple years? Was it like a 5-year?
They want to get to the tour in 5 years.
5 years.
So they're applying for a pro status, but they are not going to be UCI World Tour Pro.
Yeah.
And George has said the strategy is he wants to start off by recruiting young Americans with high levels of talent.
Yep.
And then grow the team to recruit international people to make them more competitive at the world tour stage.
Yeah.
Or world tour stage.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome. I love it.
I think it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool to have more than one American team now because
Yes.
EF is an American team, but it's, I'm excited. I'm excited about this. I think it's one of those things where like people that lived through the Armstrong era, somehow in all of that, everybody loves George. Like
he's very
Lance
lovable.
is so divisive of a person, but like
Everybody
universally,
loves-
everybody just loves George.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this will be fun.
Yeah. I think it'll be really exciting. And
Will
I hope to
his
see
son be on the team in a couple
it.
years?
Ooh.
That's
Well, maybe
and I
he
wonder
started
if
the
that's-
team.
I wonder if
because of
that's
it.
why he's doing it. Just so
It's not the worst thing.
No.
It's not the worst idea to do that.
to coach your son and make sure that like he gets the correct opportunities and he doesn't get taken advantage of.
I didn't even think about that. Ooh.
Yeah. That's a hot take right there.
I like that though. That is good.
Because his son is like moving up very quick in the
it seems like he's
in
doing
the U18
really well.
ranks.
Yeah.
Like
Which
he's
is
racing
exciting.
in Europe.
Yep. Yep.
The Hyde Park Blast had a U18 race. There was 6 kids in it, and they were like tiny little kids.
Hey, got to start them young.
All right. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below your thoughts and be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more great content. Until next time, see ya.
See you guys soon.